Are you ready to face the truth that the shortcut you have been desperately searching for has never been outside you, never hidden in some secret book or whispered by some guru, but has always been waiting in the quiet chamber of your own disciplined mind, where desire and self-command either become a force of nature or dissolve into nothingness? Because the greatest lie ever sold to humanity is that success is complicated, when in reality it is brutally simple, yet terrifyingly demanding. And that is why most people never touch it, even though it sits right in front of them like a blade that could cut them free if they dared to pick it up. You feel it, don't you? That restless ache that whispers, there must be more than this routine of days slipping into each other, more than the mechanical rhythm of waking, working, consuming, and collapsing into sleep. Because deep inside you is a hunger that is not for food or comfort, but for meaning, power, mastery, and that hunger is the same force Napoleon Hill spoke about when he described burning desire as the starting point of all riches, not just financial, but spiritual and psychological. And the Stoics knew this too when they warned that a man without control of his inner life is a slave, no matter how much gold he piles at his feet. So here you are, standing between two ancient rivers of thought that flow into the same ocean, one called desire and the other called discipline, and if you do not learn to unite them, you will drown in one or dry up in the other. Most people think a shortcut must be something that makes things easier, something that removes effort, something that allows them to bypass the uncomfortable process of becoming someone new. But the real shortcut is far more dangerous than that, because it forces you to confront yourself without anesthetic. It demands that you become the kind of person who no longer needs to escape reality through distraction, blame, or fantasy, and that is why it is hidden in plain sight. Because the ego would rather run a marathon of meaningless labor than take one step into honest self-mastery. And this is where Hill's law of definiteness of purpose meets the Stoic doctrine of inner citadel, the unbreakable core of a person who knows what they want and refuses to be ruled by what they feel. You see, desire without discipline is chaos. It is a fire that burns everything but creates nothing, and discipline without desire is a prison, a cold mechanical routine that slowly suffocates the soul. But when these two forces are fused, something extraordinary happens. A quiet, unstoppable momentum begins to build inside you, and that momentum is what the world mistakes for luck, for timing, for talent, when in truth it is simply the external echo of an internal order that has been ruthlessly constructed through daily mental governance, through choosing thought over impulse, vision over fear, and persistence over comfort. Why Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man's life is what his thoughts make it, because both were pointing to the same invisible engine that drives everything you see. You are not tired because you work too hard. You are tired because you work without inner alignment. You push forward while doubting yourself. You act while secretly believing it will not work. And this internal contradiction creates a friction that drains more energy than any physical labor ever could. But when your desire is clear and your discipline is firm, when your subconscious is impressed with a single coherent vision, and your conscious mind is trained to ignore emotional noise, you enter a state of psychological efficiency that feels almost supernatural, as if life itself is suddenly assisting you rather than resisting you. This is the forbidden knowledge of the mind that the masses never learn because it cannot be sold as a product. It can only be lived as a practice, the practice of choosing your thoughts, guarding your emotions, and directing your attention with the precision of a warrior and the patience of a monk. And when you do this long enough, something remarkable happens. You stop needing motivation because you become a system, a self-regulating mechanism that moves toward its goals with calm inevitability. And this is what Hill meant by persistence and what the Stoics meant by constancy. Look at your own life, and you will see the proof written everywhere. Every result you have is the shadow of a belief you have been carrying. Every habit is the physical expression of a mental agreement you made with yourself long ago. And if you do not consciously rewrite those agreements, they will continue to run you like an old program, producing the same outcomes again and again, which is why the shortcut is not learning more, but unlearning what no longer serves the vision you want to embody. The world will try to distract you with noise, with endless information, with 1,000 small urgencies that feel important but are ultimately meaningless, and the Stoics warned that a man who is everywhere is nowhere, while Hill warned that a scattered mind cannot magnetize success, so the shortcut becomes brutally clear when you see it for what it is: ruthless focus, a narrowing of attention so intense that it cuts away everything that is not aligned with your purpose, leaving behind a clean, powerful channel through which your energy can flow without obstruction. This focus is not stressful, it is liberating, because it frees you from the tyranny of endless choice and the exhaustion of constant comparison. And in that freedom, your subconscious finally receives a clear signal about what you want. And when the subconscious is clear, it begins to organize your perceptions, your ideas, your opportunities, and even your courage around that signal, which is what Hill called the mysterious force of the mind, and what the Stoics simply called living in accordance with reason. You start to notice things you never saw before, patterns, chances, connections, because your mind is no longer cluttered with conflicting desires and emotional turbulence. And this is why the masters seem lucky, because they are not drowning in mental static. They are tuned to a single frequency, and everything that matches that frequency becomes visible while everything else fades into background noise. But this path is not for the faint-hearted, because it requires you to let go of the comfort of victimhood, the familiar story that says life is unfair and you are powerless. And the Stoics were ruthless about this, teaching that while you cannot control events, you can always control your judgment of them. And Hill was just as uncompromising, insisting that every failure carries the seed of an equal or greater benefit, if and only if you have the discipline to look for it. And so the shortcut demands that you take radical responsibility for the inner meaning you assign to every experience. This is where true emotional detachment is born, not a cold indifference, but a fierce clarity, the ability to feel fully without being ruled by feeling, to experience pain without surrendering your purpose to it, to enjoy pleasure without becoming addicted to it. And when you master this balance, you become almost untouchable, because nothing outside you has the power to knock you off your chosen path, and that stability is the foundation upon which all great achievements are built. Imagine what would happen if every time doubt whispered in your ear, you treated it as a mere sensation rather than a command. If every time fear arose, you acknowledged it without obeying it. If every time frustration appeared, you used it as a signal to refine your strategy rather than abandon your goal, because this is the daily alchemy that turns ordinary people into forces of nature, the transformation of raw emotion into directed energy through conscious choice. Hill called this the transmutation of emotion, the ability to convert desire, fear, and even anger into productive action, and the Stoics called it the mastery of the passions, but both were describing the same internal technology, a way of using the fuel of your psyche to move forward rather than burn yourself alive. And once you learn this, the idea of being stuck begins to feel absurd, because you realize that motion is always available to you, even in the darkest of circumstances. The shortcut is not speed, it is depth. It is the deep rooting of your identity into a single clear vision, so that no storm can uproot you. And from that depth arises a quiet confidence that does not need applause, because it is anchored in self-trust, and that self-trust is built through keeping small promises to yourself over and over again until your subconscious begins to see you as someone who does what they decide, which is the essence of both Stoic virtue and Hill's principle of applied faith. As you walk this path, you will notice that the world begins to test you, not because it is cruel, but because it is neutral, reflecting back to you the level of commitment you have to your own declared purpose, and every obstacle becomes a question. How badly do you really want this? Are you willing to remain calm in chaos, to remain focused in distraction, to remain disciplined in discomfort? Because the answer you give with your actions will determine the shape of your destiny far more than any external condition ever could. This is the inner battleground where the true war is fought, not against other people or circumstances, but against the undisciplined parts of yourself that would rather be entertained than fulfilled. And every day you either win or lose this war in the small private moments when no one is watching, when you choose her to indulge a thought that weakens you or to redirect your mind toward the vision that strengthens you. And this is why the shortcut is invisible, because it takes place entirely within the silent theater of your own consciousness. When you begin to win this war consistently, something profound happens. Your nervous system settles, your mind sharpens. Your emotions become tools rather than tyrants, and in that state you move through the world with a calm intensity that people can feel but not quite explain. And this presence alone opens doors, creates respect, and attracts opportunities, because human beings are unconsciously drawn to those who are internally ordered, who radiate a sense of direction and self-command. You no longer chase validation because you are too busy executing your own standards. And this is the Stoic freedom that Hill would have recognized as the highest form of success. The ability to be rich in spirit before you are ever rich in money, to be powerful in character before you are ever powerful in position. And from that place, all external achievements become byproducts rather than desperate pursuits. The success shortcut no one tells you about is that the moment you master your mind, you have already won, even if the outer world has not yet caught up, because time is merely the delay between inner cause and outer effect. And if you remain faithful to the cause, the effect is inevitable. As sure as a seed planted in fertile soil will eventually break through the surface. And so your only real job is to keep the soil of your mind clean, disciplined, and aligned with the vision you have chosen to cultivate. Every day you wake up, you are either planting seeds of doubt or seeds of faith, seeds of distraction or seeds of focus, seeds of weakness or seeds of strength. And the Stoics would remind you that this choice is always yours, while Hill would remind you that whatever you plant consistently must eventually grow, so the shortcut becomes not a trick but a truth, a simple, relentless devotion to the inner life that produces an outer life of power, purpose, and peace. And as this truth begins to settle into you, as it moves from an idea to a lived experience, you will start to feel a quiet fire burning behind your eyes, a steady resolve that does not need to shout because it knows, a certainty that you are becoming the person you once only imagined. And in that becoming, the old fears, the old limitations, the old stories start to fall away like dead skin, revealing a sharper, stronger, more deliberate self underneath. This is where ambition and calmness finally shake hands, where the hunger for more no longer conflicts with the peace of enough, because you are no longer driven by lack but guided by purpose. And this is the sacred psychology that both Napoleon Hill and the Stoic masters were trying to hand down through the centuries, a way of living that is both fiercely effective and deeply serene, a way of winning without losing yourself, of striving without suffering. And so as you stand here now, listening to these words, feeling something stir inside you that you cannot quite name, know that you are already at the entrance to the shortcut, that narrow gate between who you have been and who you are capable of becoming, and the only thing left is the decision to step through it, to begin the quiet, discipline, relentless work of mastering your own mind, because in that mastery lies every success you have ever dreamed of and every peace you have ever sought. The moment you accept that this inner mastery is the true shortcut, a strange tension begins to build inside you, because part of you wants to cling to the old way of living, the familiar chaos of reacting, blaming, hoping, while another part of you senses a colder, sharper truth rising like steel through fog, a truth that says your life will only change when you do, not on the surface, but at the level of identity, where thought becomes destiny and emotion becomes either a chain or a weapon. And in this silent confrontation between who you have been and who you must become, the psychology of success reveals its most unforgiving law, that nothing external can compensate for internal disorder. This is why so many people read books, watch videos, chase mentors, yet remain trapped in the same patterns year after year, because they are trying to use information to solve a problem that can only be solved by transformation. And transformation is not comfortable. It is the slow death of the self that found safety in excuses, and rebirth of the self that finds strength in responsibility. And Napoleon Hill understood this when he wrote that success comes from a burning desire that refuses to be extinguished by doubt. while the Stoics understood it when they taught that the only true possession is your own character. Everything else is borrowed from fate and can be taken back without warning. When you really see this, you realize that your fears have never been your enemies. They have been your teachers, showing you exactly where our identity is still weak, where your mind is still undisciplined, where your faith in yourself has not yet been proven through action, because fear is not the opposite of courage. It is the raw material from which courage is forged, and this alchemy only happens when you stop running and start observing, when you let fear rise in your body and choose not to obey it. And in that moment, you are no longer a victim of your psychology, but its master. Hill called this the development of self-confidence, but not the shallow bravado of ego, the deep, quiet knowing that you can be trusted to do what you decide. And the Stoics called it inner strength, the unshakable stability of a mind that does not collapse under pressure. And when these two currents merge, something powerful is born, a personality that is both ambitious and unbreakable, driven by vision yet anchored in calm, able to pursue great goals without being emotionally enslaved by them. Most people are tortured by their own desires because they want without clarity and crave without control. But when your desire is refined by reason and disciplined by daily action, it becomes a compass rather than a torment, pointing you steadily toward a future that feels not just possible but inevitable. And this inevitability is not mystical. It is mathematical, because a mind that consistently thinks in alignment with a goal and a body that consistently acts in alignment with that thought will eventually produce the reality that matches it, just as surely as gravity pulls objects toward the earth. Yet the greatest enemy you will face on this path is not failure, but comfort, not pain, but pleasure, because comfort lulls the mind NTO forgetting its deeper hunger, and pleasure seduces you into trading long-term fulfillment for short-term relief. And the Stoics warn that a man who cannot say no to himself is doomed to say yes to everything that weakens him, while Hill warned that drifting, the habit of moving through life without a definite purpose, is the silent killer of potential. Drifting feels harmless, even relaxing, but it is in drift that dreams decay, because without a clear direction, the subconscious mind has nothing to organize around, and so it defaults to the strongest immediate emotion, which is usually fear or desire for comfort. And this is why people sabotage themselves just as they get close to something meaningful, because their inner world has not been trained to tolerate the tension of growth, and so it pulls them back toward the familiar even when the familiar is painful. To escape this gravity of mediocrity, you must become someone who can hold discomfort without flinching, someone who can sit with uncertainty without panicking, someone who can continue to act in the absence of immediate reward. And this is the Stoic practice of endurance married to Hill's principle of persistence, and together they form the backbone of all extraordinary achievement, because nothing truly valuable is created without passing through a period of darkness where doubt whispers louder than hope. In that darkness, your only light is your chosen vision, the image of the person you are becoming, and this is where imagination, so central to Hill's philosophy, becomes a sacred tool rather than a childish fantasy, because imagination, when disciplined, is the blueprint of reality, the rehearsal of the future you are building. And when you return to that image again and again, impressing it upon your subconscious with emotional intensity and calm conviction, it begins to shape your behavior in ways you do not have to consciously force. You start to speak differently, to move differently, to choose differently, not because you are pretending, but because your identity is shifting at a level deeper than conscious effort. And this is why the Stoics emphasize the importance of daily reflection, of reminding yourself who you are trying to be and what truly matters. Because without this ritual of remembrance, the mind is easily seduced by the trivial and the urgent, forgetting the essential. As this new identity takes root, you will notice a strange loneliness, a feeling of being slightly out of sync with the world around you, because most people live in a fog of reaction and distraction. And when you begin to live with intention and discipline, you no longer resonate with that frequency. And this can be painful because the human heart craves belonging. But the Stoics taught that it is better to be at peace with yourself than to be at war with your own conscience just to fit in. And Hill would add that greatness has always required a willingness to walk alone until others catch up. This loneliness is not a curse. It is a sign that you are no longer governed by the herd, that your values are no longer borrowed but chosen. And in this quiet separation, you find a deeper connection to your own purpose, a sense that your life is no longer just happening to you, but being shaped by you. And this sense of agency is the true source of confidence, far more potent than any praise, or approval. The more you live from this place, the more you realize that circumstances are not obstacles but training grounds, each challenge an opportunity to strengthen your discipline, to refine your vision, to prove to yourself that you are no longer the person who collapses under pressure. And this is the Stoic art of turning adversity into advantage, combined with Hill's law of finding the seed of benefit in every setback. And when you practice this consistently, even failure becomes a form of progress. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, how is this happening for me? Not in a naive or delusional way, but in a strategic way, because every experience contains information, and a disciplined mind extracts that information rather than drowning in emotion. And this extraction is what allows you to evolve faster than those who remain trapped in self-pity or resentment. Resentment is poison to the subconscious, because it keeps you focused on what you cannot control. And the Stoics were relentless about this, teaching that your peace depends entirely on where you place your attention, while Hill showed that your success depends on the same thing, because attention is the gateway to thought, and thought is the gateway to action, and action is the gateway to results. When you understand this chain, you become ruthless about what you allow into your mind, not in a fearful way, but in a disciplined way, choosing what you consume, what you dwell on, what you emotionally invest in, because you know that every thought you entertain is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming, and over time these votes accumulate into a destiny. This is why the shortcut is invisible to those who live on autopilot, because it requires a level of self-awareness that is uncomfortable at first, a willingness to watch your own mind and notice its habits, its excuses, its patterns of avoidance. But in this observation, you gain power, because what you can see, you can change, and what you can change, you can master. Mastery does not mean perfection, it means direction, a steady orientation toward growth rather than decay, toward creation rather than consumption, toward purpose rather than pleasure. And this orientation is what separates those who merely survive from those who truly live, those who drift from those who decide, those who react from those who shape. As you continue on this path, you will feel the old you resisting, whispering that this is too hard, too lonely, too uncertain. But that voice is not your enemy. It is just the echo of a former identity that has not yet accepted its own death, and the Stoics would tell you to let it speak without letting it rule, while Hill would tell you to replace it with a new affirmation of who you are becoming, spoken with feeling and conviction until the subconscious begins to believe it. Belief is not a matter of will. It is a matter of repetition and emotional alignment, and this is why rituals matter. The daily practices of reflection, visualization, disciplined action, because they keep your mind focused on the future rather than imprisoned by the past, and over time that focus becomes a gravitational field that pulls your life in a new direction. This is the deeper meaning of manifestation, not the childish idea that you can wish things into existence, but the profound truth that what you consistently think about, feel about, and act upon becomes the structure of your reality. And when you align these three forces with a clear vision and a disciplined temperament, the results appear almost magical, though they are in fact the natural outcome of a well-ordered psyche. And so you begin to walk through your days with a new intensity, not frantic but deliberate, not desperate but determined, each action a small brushstroke in the painting of your future, each choice a quiet declaration of who you are, and in this steady accumulation of disciplined moments, a life of extraordinary power and peace begins to take shape, not because the world has changed, but because you have. The rhythm of this new life is strange at first, because the world still moves at its usual chaotic pace, but you no longer belong to it. In the same way, You have become a silent observer and an active shaper simultaneously. And this duality is the core of the shortcut no one tells you about: to act without being acted upon, to desire without being enslaved by desire, to feel without being consumed by feeling, and to persist without the constant need for external validation. Your mornings begin differently now, with a quiet meditation on purpose rather than a reflexive check of messages. Your attention is no longer a scattered commodity, but a precise instrument, scanning for opportunities that align with your vision while ignoring distractions that once seemed urgent but are in truth trivial. This is where Hill's principle of definiteness of purpose merges seamlessly with the Stoic focus on what lies within your control, forming a mental architecture so solid that the winds of circumstance bounce harmlessly off it. You notice, too, that your emotional responses have changed, subtly at first, like the gradual adjustment of your eyes to darkness, but eventually unmistakably. Anger no longer flares without reason. Impatience no longer dictates your decisions. Anxiety no longer undermines your courage. You are not cold or detached in a way that diminishes life. Instead, you have learned the ancient art of channeling emotion into clarity, of observing the stirrings of your heart without letting them hijack your mind. It is here, in this tension between passion and control, that the mind begins to function at a level most people will never know. Your emotions are no longer the drivers of your journey. They are the fuel, carefully refined and directed, igniting purposeful action rather than scattered reactivity. Every challenge that once would have destabilized you now becomes a mirror, reflecting where you still need growth. A critical remark from a colleague, a delay in your plans, an unforeseen setback. These are no longer sources of despair or frustration, but signals. Signals that illuminate weak points in your discipline, gaps in your vision, cracks in your mental fortitude. You respond with calm intensity, assessing, adjusting, and moving forward. This is the Stoic acceptance of fate applied in real time. You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control your interpretation and response. And when that control becomes second nature, life itself begins to cooperate in subtle, profound ways. You also begin to see the hidden architecture of influence. People who once seemed like arbiters of your fortune reveal themselves as reflections of your own mind. Your relationships, your opportunities, your circumstances, all of them are in some way responding to the frequency of your inner state. The clarity, the discipline, the calm determination you cultivate internally radiate outward, drawing resources, collaborators, and moments into alignment with your purpose. Napoleon Hill called this the law of cosmic habit force, the invisible principle that aligns your external world with your internal convictions, and the Stoics would have recognized it as living in accordance with nature. When your internal order is true, your external life naturally mirrors it. Yet, this path is not linear. There are moments of dissonance when old patterns scream to be restored. Temptation rises in quiet, seductive forms. A shortcut that promises ease, a small indulgence that feels like relief, a fleeting distraction that offers the illusion of rest. And in these moments, the shortcut's danger and its power reveal themselves simultaneously. Mastery is not proven in comfort, but in the relentless choice to act in alignment with your highest self, to prefer delayed, disciplined reward over immediate, hollow pleasure. Each time you succeed in this, your self-trust deepens, your identity solidifies, and the shortcut becomes less of a hidden path and more of a lived reality. Your thinking itself transforms. Problems cease to appear as walls and begin to reveal themselves as puzzles, challenges that can be dissected, understood, and conquered. Where others panic or complain, you calculate and adapt. Where others seek validation, you seek understanding. Where others flee, you persist. This is the combination of Hill's principle of apply, faith, and the Stoic commitment to reason, faith in your chosen vision, and reason in your method. Together they produce a mind that is both relentless and unshakable, a mind that moves toward results without being seduced by fear or paralyzed by doubt. In this space, creativity and insight flourish. Ideas that once felt fleeting now crystallize with astonishing clarity. Solutions appear not as laborious inventions, but as natural consequences of a disciplined, aligned psyche. Imagination, once dismissed as fanciful or irrelevant, becomes your most potent tool, a rehearsal stage for reality, a laboratory where possibilities are tested and refined before they manifest in the world. Hill described this as the creative imagination, the seat of all wealth and accomplishment, and when paired with the Stoic capacity for deliberate judgment, it becomes a force capable of shaping not only your own life, but the trajectory of every project and endeavor you touch. Persistence, too, evolves into something deeper than mere stubbornness. It becomes an unwavering rhythm, a steady heartbeat beneath every action. Every day, small victories compound. Every time you resist distraction, every time you choose principle over impulse, you reinforce a network of habits that operates beneath the surface, a subconscious infrastructure that eventually produces results faster and more reliably than conscious effort alone. This is where the shortcut reveals its brilliance. It is not in avoiding the work, but in refining the work so that your mind and your environment begin to execute it almost automatically. You begin to perceive the subtle signals of reality, patterns, and alignments that were invisible before. Timing, opportunity, and luck, once considered arbitrary, now appear as predictable consequences of mental and emotional calibration. The subconscious, trained with repeated attention, begins to guide your actions and perceptions in ways you cannot always articulate, and when combined with conscious strategy, this produces a sense of inevitability. Success is no longer a hope, it is a forecast. And yet humility grows alongside power. You recognize that the shortcut is not magic and not absolute. It is contingent upon daily discipline, on the continual refinement of mind, character, and intention. You see how easily it could be undone by negligence or surrender to old habits. This awareness sharpens your vigilance, and in the quiet reflection that follows each day, you assess not only what you achieved, but how faithfully you adhered to your principles. The measurement of success becomes internal, not external, a constant inquiry: am I acting from my highest self, or am I slipping back into the comfortable mediocrity of my past? As the days pass, this practice becomes both shield and weapon. The mind, once scattered, is now a fortress. The emotions, once unruly, are now tools. The will, once tentative, is now decisive. You feel a growing confidence, not in a superficial sense, but in a deep, irreducible knowledge that you are prepared for whatever circumstance may arrive. And this confidence radiates outward, attracting circumstances that match your inner state. The shortcut is no longer a theory, it is the lived rhythm of your life, an invisible current that moves you forward even when obstacles appear insurmountable. You begin to notice subtle shifts in hers as well. People react differently to you, not because you are trying to manipulate them, but because the internal alignment you cultivate projects itself externally. Respect replaces resistance, opportunity replaces randomness, collaboration replaces conflict. This is the external manifestation of the internal law. Your world mirrors the quality of your mind, and mastery begins to feel both inevitable and natural, as if life itself is bending in accordance with the inner order you have imposed upon it. And still, temptation and distraction persist. The old world, the world of impulsive reactions, shallow gratification, and unexamined habits, continues to whisper, insisting you return to the comfort of mediocrity. But you have tasted the edge of mastery, and it is sharper, clearer, more alive than anything the world offers. The choice is no longer theoretical. Either you persist, forging the disciplined, ambitious, emotionally sovereign identity that Hill and the Stoics both revered, or you return to the chaos, and in that choice lies the essence of the shortcut, brutally simple, profoundly demanding, and invisible to those unwilling to face themselves with unflinching honesty. You are no longer the person who once sought shortcuts outside yourself. You are the person who has discovered that the true shortcut has always been internal, the mastery of thought, emotion, and action. The moment you embrace this, every action, every decision, every perception aligns with your chosen vision. You move through life with a calm ferocity, each day an intentional step toward inevitable success, each challenge a chance to prove to yourself that you are no longer subject to circumstance, but the creator of it. The mind that can hold desire and discipline in perfect balance, that can imagine and execute, that can persist through discomfort without surrendering to emotion or circumstance, is unstoppable. This is the secret hidden in plain sight, the shortcut no one tells you about, the fusion of Napoleon Hill's visionary principles with Stoic mastery. It is not a trick, not a formula, not a quick fix, but a profound transformation of identity. When your mind changes, your life changes. When your inner state is disciplined and focused, the outer world inevitably follows. You feel it now, do you not? That quiet, relentless momentum building beneath your awareness, the subtle alignment of thought, feeling, and action. It is invisible to others, but undeniable to you. It is proof that the shortcut exists, not in the world, not in circumstances, not in fleeting motivation, but within the inner citadel of your mind. This is where power, peace, and purpose converge. And it is here that true success begins, not as a distant hope, but as a living, breathing reality unfolding with every disciplined, intentional step you take. This is where the path diverges, for those who are willing to walk it. You have glimpsed the invisible current. You have seen the terrain within which true mastery is forged. And now the only question that remains is whether you have the courage, the focus, and the relentless discipline to follow it through, to live in alignment with the principles that make the invisible visible, the impossible inevitable, and the shortcut unmistakably yours. The air around you begins to feel different, charged with the subtle vibration of possibility. What? Notice it in the way opportunities seem to appear just as you need them, in the way conversations carry unexpected insight, in the way your own thoughts suddenly hold clarity where before they were murky. This is not coincidence. This is the natural consequence of a mind brought into alignment with purpose, disciplined in action, and tempered by reason. Napoleon Hill called it the law of success, acting through definite purpose and persistence. The Stoics would have recognized it as the natural reward of living in accordance with reason and virtue. You are no longer moving blindly, you are flowing with precision, and the current you ride is created by the very structure of your disciplined consciousness. It is here, in this heightened state, that the most subtle and profound challenges begin. They are not external calamities, not obvious obstacles, but internal contradictions, the remnants of old habits, lingering doubts, subtle fears that whisper, "You are not enough," or "This path is too hard," or "You cannot hold this level of discipline indefinitely." And the real test of mastery is not avoiding these thoughts. It is observing them without surrender, allowing them to exist without granting them power, acknowledging their presence, and then returning to the work of alignment. The Stoics taught that the mind, like a fortified city, must repel intrusions without wasting its strength on fear or resentment. And Hill emphasized the same principle. Mental control is the single most important factor in manifesting desire. You begin to see the cumulative weight of small actions, the slow but inexorable build of momentum that the untrained mind cannot perceive. One disciplined choice, repeated daily, compounds invisibly until it reshapes the entire landscape of possibility. You see how countless people fail not because they lack talent or luck, but because they underestimate the power of these incremental acts. Persistence is not glamorous. It does not announce itself in grand gestures. It whispers in the quiet repetition of aligned thought, the steady application of reason to desire, the unwavering refusal to be distracted or swayed by transient emotions. And yet desire remains. It is no longer frantic, uncontrolled, or chaotic, but refined and potent, a laser of intention that cuts through the fog of distraction. You understand that desire itself is not a sin, not a weakness, but the raw material of achievement. Without it, there is no fuel, no momentum, no vision. But desire left untempered by discipline becomes destructive. The shortcut is not in eliminating desire, but in harnessing it, shaping it with reason, channeling it into sustained action that moves steadily toward manifestation. This is the fusion of Hill's fiery ambition and the Stoic's cool control, to burn without consuming, to strive without losing equanimity. The mind, once a field of weeds and chaos, now becomes a garden meticulously tended. Thoughts are planted with intention, nourished by reflection, cultivated with discipline. Emotional weeds are pulled as soon as they appear. Resentment, envy, frustration, and doubt are acknowledged, but removed before they take root. The Stoic practices of mindfulness, daily journaling, and rational examination become tools of alchemy, transforming base emotion into productive energy. Hill's insistence on a clear, focused mind, impressing desire upon the subconscious, aligns perfectly with this method. The inner garden must be orderly for the external harvest to be abundant. With this order comes a strange serenity, a quiet power that those around you sense but cannot name. People react differently to you. Opportunities appear more often, and situations that once seemed threatening now feel like challenges you can navigate with composure. This is not luck, it is the natural effect of internal alignment radiating outward. The mind, disciplined and aligned, acts as a magnet. The world mirrors the order within. This is the subtlety of the shortcut. It is invisible, but undeniable to anyone attuned to its rhythm. Failures no longer feel like disasters. They are simply data, feedback, signs pointing to adjustments that need to be made. Each setback becomes a lesson in persistence, a mirror reflecting the areas where your discipline is incomplete. Hill spoke of the seed of benefit hidden within every failure, and now you see it for yourself. You no longer resist learning from setbacks, you embrace them. Each one strengthens your resolve, sharpens your strategy, and fortifies your inner citadel. The Stoic teaches that misfortune tests character. You understand that success is forged in this crucible. You also notice a transformation in your perception of time. Patience is no longer an abstract virtue, but a practical tool. The impatient mind is scattered and weak. The patient mind is precise and powerful. You see that true progress is often invisible, the result of compounding effort, of repeated alignment, of consistency, maintained in the face of fatigue, distraction, and temptation. The shortcut is patience applied with discipline, the quiet, relentless rhythm that shapes both character and circumstance. Relationships shift as well. You are no longer easily influenced by gossip, negativity, or idle opinions. The people who resonate with your purpose move closer, drawn by the clarity and integrity you project. Those who are misaligned drift away, their distance not mourned but simply observed. The Stoic would call this acceptance of what lies outside your control. Hill would call it the natural consequence of living in accordance with a defined purpose. Your inner alignment becomes a filter, attracting what serves your vision and repelling what does not. You begin to see patterns that were invisible before. Success is no longer a matter of random chance, but a predictable outcome of repeated disciplined choices. Opportunities that seemed rare now appear as natural consequences of your alignment. Creativity flows effortlessly because the mind, now clear and ordered, can see solutions and possibilities that were previously obscured by chaos. Your imaginatio is no longer a frivolous escape, but a tool for strategic planning, for visualizing outcomes, for rehearsing success in advance. And still, the path demands vigilance. Every day requires conscious effort, reflection, and adjustment. Complacency is the enemy. The subtle lure of comfort and distraction is constant. But you have tasted the potency of alignment, and the cost of slipping back is now too high. Discipline has become a habit, not in the mechanical sense, but as a natural expression of identity. Persistence is no longer forced. It flows as an extension of your refined desire. Emotional mastery is no longer theoretical. It is practiced in every thought, word, and action. The shortcut is revealed more clearly now. It is not in speed or external manipulation, not in tricks or schemes, but in the profound, relentless cultivation of self. Mastery of thought, mastery of emotion, mastery of action. Persistence applied to a defined purpose. Desire harnessed and disciplined. Imagination used strategically. Every element aligned internally, producing inevitable external manifestation. The shortcut is the interior engineering of your mind, a rigorous architecture invisible to the untrained eye, but profoundly effective in its consequences. And as this understanding deepens, you feel the subtle shift of identity taking place. You are no longer the reactive, uncertain person of your past. You are deliberate, confident, and internally ordered. Challenges are no longer crises, but tests, invitations to demonstrate the integration of desire, discipline, and reason. The shortcut is no longer a concept. It is a living, breathing reality, an ongoing practice of aligning mind, ion, and action in service of a chosen, defined vision. You sense the transformation unfolding not as a sudden miracle, but as the inevitable fruit of persistent, disciplined internal work. The world responds accordingly, as if acknowledging the quiet authority that now radiates from you. Hill would recognize this as the natural outcome of faith impressed upon the subconscious. The Stoics would recognize it as the external reflection of internal virtue. You are both student and master, observer and actor, builder and ruler of the invisible architecture of your destiny. The shortcut no one tells you about has become tangible. It is not a formula, not a tool, not a fleeting trick. It is the interior transformation, the cultivation of mind and character, the relentless pursuit of alignment between desire, discipline, and reason. From this foundation, everything else becomes possible, not guaranteed, but inevitable if you continue to act in accordance with the principles you have internalized. And still, the journey is ongoing. Each day presents the opportunity to deepen this mastery, to refine the focus, to strengthen the emotional resilience that allows you to persist undistracted. The shortcut is both simple and demanding. It is the disciplined exercise of self-mastery repeated daily until identity and action fuse into an unstoppable force. You are no longer searching for shortcuts outside yourself. You have discovered the ultimate shortcut within. This is where the ordinary diverges from the extraordinary. The ordinary seeks external advantages, fleeting hacks, easy wins, and temporary motivation. The extraordinary cultivates internal mastery, aligns mind and emotion, harnesses desire, and persists relentlessly in the direction of a clearly defined purpose. The shortcut exists only for those who do the inner work, only for those willing to endure discomfort, to embrace discipline, and to maintain unwavering focus in the face of distraction, doubt, and temptation. The evidence is clear. Your thoughts, actions, and emotions now radiate a coherence that organizes circumstance. Your inner life has become the magnet of your external reality. The world bends not through force, but through the quiet inevitability of internal order. And this is the power the uninitiated never perceive, the shortcut no one tells you about, the hidden law of success that is visible only to those who have mastered themselves. You feel it now, the subtle hum beneath your awareness, the momentum of aligned thought, disciplined emotion, and persistent action building inescapably. It is invisible, unstoppable, and undeniable. The shortcut is no longer a distant theory. It is here within you, guiding every step, every decision, every breath, shaping a life of power, peace, and inevitable achievement. The world seems unchanged at first, yet you feel the subtle difference. The same streets, the same people, the same routines, but now you move through them like a man who has learned the language of reality, who understands that every circumstance is a reflection, a mirror of your inner order. Obstacles that once felt insurmountable now feel like exercises, tests of your capacity to remain disciplined, focused, and emotionally sovereign. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. Hill called it applying a definiteness of purpose with unwavering faith. You recognize them as two sides of the same coin, mastery of self as the only true path to mastery of circumstance. Every moment is now an opportunity to strengthen the architecture of your mind. The old habits that once ruled you, impulse, distraction, doubt, are not vanquished, but they are understood and anticipated. You observe them as the Stoics advised, acknowledging their presence without yielding to their tyranny. Fear and desire are no longer the masters of your day, they are raw materials, fuel for deliberate action. Each challenge becomes a laboratory, each emotion a tool, each thought a seed. The shortcut is not in the absence of difficulty, but in the disciplined transmutation of difficulty into momentum. You begin to notice patterns where others see randomness. Meetings, encounters, conversations, all seem to carry subtle signals, cues, and openings that were invisible before. Your mind, trained by repeated alignment of thought, feeling, and action, begins to perceive the invisible architecture of opportunity. You see that luck is not random, it is a byproduct of internal order. Hill would call this the law of cosmic habit force. The Stoics would call it the reflection of virtue in the world. In both cases, the world conforms to the inner state of the person who has mastered themselves. Creativity and insight surge in this environment of order. Where once ideas were fleeting, now they crystallize with clarity. Solutions appear not through effort, but as natural consequences of an aligned mind. Imagination is no longer a whimsical escape. It is a rehearsal of reality, a strategic projection of what is possible when thought, feeling, and action are in perfect resonance. Every decision is made with the confidence that comes from seeing the long arc of consequence, the unfolding of events shaped by consistent internal discipline. The shortcut, you realize, has never been in avoiding work or struggle, but in refining the internal instruments of thought and emotion so that effort becomes precise, intention becomes action, and persistence becomes a steady, inevitable momentum. Each day compounds the results of the previous day. Each disciplined choice reinforces the structure of your mind, your character, your destiny. What once seemed impossible now feels inevitable, not through luck, not through external advantage, but through the invisible force of a mind aligned with its highest purpose. And yet temptation and distraction never disappear. They lurk in the edges of perception, in the comfort of old routines, in the subtle whispers of fear and doubt. The path demands vigilance. The shortcut is not passive. It requires active, conscious engagement with every thought, every emotion, every impulse. You are tested not by grand events, but by the small, repeated moments that cumulatively define your character. This is where the uninitiated fail. They underestimate the power of small, disciplined actions repeated without deviation. Patience becomes a practiced skill, not an abstract virtue. You learn to trust the process, to trust that consistent alignment of thought, emotion, and action will produce results, even when immediate evidence is lacking. The impatience that once sabotaged your efforts is replaced by a calm, steady momentum. You act deliberately with precision, knowing that every disciplined choice compounds invisibly until the external world reflects the inner order you have cultivated. Your relationships and environment begin to shift naturally. People respond to your clarity, your calm intensity, your unwavering focus. Those aligned with your purpose move closer, attracted by the resonance of internal order. Those misaligned drift away, as naturally as weeds are removed from a well-tended garden. The shortcut is evident in these subtle adjustments. Life organizes itself around the mind that has achieved internal coherence, around the person who has mastered the invisible forces that govern perception, influence, and opportunity. Failure is no longer feared. Every setback becomes a source of insight, a diagnostic tool for refining strategy and reinforcing discipline. Hill's principle that every adversity carries the seed of equal or greater benefit becomes a living truth, and the Stoic recognition that misfortune tests character becomes a practical guide. You learn to extract lessons from difficulty, to convert challenges into fuel, to use every external event as a means of internal strengthening. Time itself begins to feel different. It stretches and compresses according to the attention you bring to it. The chaotic rush of life becomes a structured rhythm, a steady cadence of intentional acts. You no longer energy on trivialities or distractions. Focus is applied relentlessly to what matters, and the compounding effect of this focus begins to manifest in subtle but undeniable results. This is the invisible architecture of success, the quiet accumulation of advantage that the uninitiated mistake for luck or talent. The mind has become a fortress and a magnet simultaneously. It deflects distraction, absorbs insight, converts emotion into energy, and organizes circumstances around a clear purpose. You act without being acted upon, desire without being enslaved by desire, feel without being consumed by feeling, and persist without the need for external affirmation. This is the ultimate expression of the shortcut, the internal mastery that produces inevitable external consequence. You notice a profound change in perception. Where once the world seemed chaotic and arbitrary, now patterns emerge with startling clarity. Events, opportunities, and even failures are read as data points, each contributing to a broader understanding of reality. Your imagination allows you to project these patterns into action before they manifest externally, creating a preemptive advantage that seems almost prophetic. Hill's principle of applied faith merges seamlessly with the Stoic practice of reasoned anticipation. The mind trained to see, understand, and act becomes unstoppable. Emotional mastery deepens. Fear, desire, anger, and frustration are no longer tyrants. They are acknowledged, processed, and channeled. The Stoic detachment is not cold indifference, but active engagement with reality without surrendering agency. Hill's transmutation of emotion becomes a daily practice. Raw impulses are converted into deliberate action, sustaining momentum toward a clearly defined vision. The subtlety of this practice is invisible to the casual observer, yet its power is unmistakable in results, in presence, in influence. You also notice the refining of your inner language. Thoughts are no longer scattered. Your internal dialogue is coherent, precise, and aligned with your vision. Words once wasted in complaint, doubt, or distraction are now spoken with intention. Language, as a reflection of thought, becomes a tool of manifestation. Every sentence, every mental rehearsal, every spoken affirmation impresses the subconscious mind with the clarity of purpose, reinforcing alignment and strengthening identity. The shortcut is no longer theoretical. It is a daily lived experience, a practice, a rhythm. Each action, each reflection, each decision is a building block in the architecture of mastery. The invisible forces of mental clarity, emotional control, and persistent action converge, creating a life that operates with quiet inevitability. External events no longer dictate your state. Internal order dictates outcomes. This is the fusion of Hill's principles and Stoic discipline, the hidden shortcut that transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary consequence. And as this understanding deepens, a profound confidence emerges. Not arrogance, not complacency, but the unshakable certainty that your inner order will manifest externally. The world may resist temporarily, circumstances may challenge you, and setbacks will appear, but the internal alignment guarantees that each obstacle becomes a stepping stone, each delay a moment of strategic reflection, each difficulty a forge for character. The shortcut is revealed not in avoidance, not in manipulation, not in luck, but in the disciplined, relentless cultivation of mind, emotion, and action toward a chosen, defined purpose. This is where the invisible becomes visible, where potential becomes reality, where the mind, once chaotic, becomes a magnet and an architect of circumstance. Every thought, every emotion, every action aligns, creating a subtle but unstoppable momentum. The shortcut is no longer hidden. It is lived, practiced, and embodied. The mastery you cultivate internally projects outward, shaping opportunities, relationships, and results, producing a life that is both powerful and serene, ambitious and disciplined, inevitable and purposeful. You sense it now, the culmination of discipline, desire, and reason coalescing into a single current. The momentum you have built is palpable, invisible, but undeniable. Each day adds to it, each conscious choice strengthens it, each mastered emotion feeds it. The shortcut no one tells you about is complete, not as a secret trick, but as the visible manifestation of invisible mastery. The inner work made external, the disciplined mind shaping the world in accordance with its vision, creating a life of unstoppable achievement and serene power. This is where ordinary stops and extraordinary begins. Those who seek shortcuts externally will never perceive it. Those who cultivate it internally will never be stopped. Ped. And as you stand in this awareness, you understand the profound truth. The shortcut to success has always been within you. The mastery of thought, the alignment of emotion, the disciplined pursuit of defined purpose. This is the path, the law, the hidden current beneath every great life. And now, having walked it, having felt it, having begun to live it, you are no longer bound by chance, circumstance, or opinion. You are the architect of your own inevitable destiny. Now comes the moment where all previous lessons converge, where every principle, every disciplined choice, every victory over distraction and impulse finds its meaning. Pause and ask yourself this: if the life you have always dreamed of is already written in the architecture of your mind, why have you not yet lived it? The answer is simple, and it is both brutal and liberating, because you have been living externally, reacting to circumstance, chasing comfort, seeking approval, and allowing the untrained mind to dictate your fate. The shortcut is not outside. It has never been outside. It is here, in the furnace of your consciousness, waiting for the courage to ignite it, waiting for the relentless discipline to breathe it into being. You feel it now, the weight of potential, the hum of inevitability building beneath your awareness. Your mind, once fractured, now resonates with purpose. Your emotions, once chaotic, now flow with deliberate energy. Your actions, once reactive, now strike with precision. The fusion of Napoleon Hill's unrelenting principles of success and the Stoic's imperturbable mastery of self has forged in you a new force, a mind and spirit capable of generating reality rather than being buffeted by it. Desire and discipline, vision and reason, faith and calm, these are no longer abstract ideas, but living instruments, tools in your hands for shaping destiny. Every obstacle now is a mirror, every setback a teacher, every challenge a forge. You understand that no external affirmation, no fleeting opportunity, no random stroke of luck can substitute for this internal alignment. The world will test you, as it always does, with betrayal, delay, distraction, and uncertainty.